Karen, it's so wonderful to have you a part of this Learn to Listen series. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it's a good story. We're catching up a little bit on how God has been using your life, but I'd love for you just to dive right in and start sharing just your history with your faith, history with dance, wherever you want to lead us, and we're just going to follow and listen. So thank you.
Sounds good. I think in order to shape the storytelling, because there's just too much in there, it's been a full 40 something years.
That's good. That's good.
I've been thinking, yes, by the grace of God, it has been full and wonderful. I'm thinking specifically about listening. I think I was a better listener in my youth. Clearly when I was responsible for fewer people, having a family of 3 wonderful, busy, bright, talkative, creative, imaginative children, makes sometimes it hard to listen. But I know that listening to God is something that has been a priority to me since I was young. I responded to God's call on my life very young, grew up in a very encouraging home and community of faith. And it had always been a priority of mine to just be available to serve wherever God would put me. And yet I have always had the tendency to listen up until I get a tiny glimpse of direction, and then to say thank you and take off and try to go do it by myself. That's been a pattern my whole life. I get very excited and want to just go make things happen. Growing up as a dance student, I never really imagined that I would continue dancing as an adult, and then struggled to figure out for what to go to college. And eventually, over the course of my first year of college, kind of not knowing where to fit, really just felt like the Lord was bringing up opportunities for me to serve with that gift, with that training that I had built it already over many, many, many years. Enough that I realized, okay, this is something that you want to use. This is the thing that that I can invest in order to be of service. And so at that point, I just wanted to hone my skills the best that I could. So I transferred to Belhaven University, which was Belhaven College at the time, because it was the only Christian college in the country at the time with a dance major. I had been a student at Azusa Pacific University my freshman year of college, and I loved the atmosphere and the community of being surrounded by people of faith and that encouragement. But I wanted to pursue dance. And so Belhaven was the natural only place that I could find to go where I could do both of those things. And it was a wonderful place to hone my technique. Lori Biggs and Mark Aronson and the relationship that they had with Ballet Magnificat was a great combination of just incredible, very loving, caring, but very passionate about the craft. People who were very passionate about the craft. And I sometimes think about the work that Lori Biggs did in our classes as like sculpting. There's a quote that maybe it was the sculptor of the David, Michelangelo, saying that he just chisels away the part that's not David, right? And I feel like that's what Lori Biggs does in technique classes, chisels away the part that's not a necessary dancer. So I felt like I left college with a clean facility and ready to be put to use and of service wherever God would have me do that. At the time, I'm happy to have witnessed this completely change. But at the time, it wasn't a place that was encouraging dancers to go find work wherever it may be. They're in the development of arts and artists and the Christian faith and the service of the two, and that relationship, I think, has undergone a lot of changes just in my lifetime, specifically related to where is a safe place to employ your skills, where is a useful place to employ your skills, where is the right vehicle to do that. And so I didn't really feel encouraged to just go out and get the best job I could. I felt a lot of encouragement to find a safe place to work, where my faith would be protected. And so I was a little conflicted leaving college about how to pursue the next step. Of course, God in his infinite mercy and graciousness was crafting my path all the way along. It's so fun to look back and see the serpentine path and to know that it was very, very deliberately, that I was very deliberately led through all of those steps. But I did meet Randall Flynn as a student, and one of the kind of guiding passages of scripture that had been kind of a home base for me in that time was Psalm 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And that verse has been important to me for a couple of reasons. One, because it assumes that I will have some desires or some dreams or some goals. It doesn't say, get rid of everything you want or get rid of everything. You know, there's a tendency there's a way of thinking that says that you can only be really, truly at peace if you get rid of all desire and clear yourself of ambition or goals or any of those things. And then you're going to find peace in just being able to be completely empty. And I'm so thankful that scripture does not present that as the human existence, because it isn't, because we're given passions and dreams and desires. And in that verse, I always felt like that was acknowledged by God, that he's made me to dream and to want to work and to have desires, and that the way that those are best fulfilled are when I'm ultimately most satisfied in him. And so I remember being at Randall Flynn's Outreach summer program right a year before I was supposed to graduate from college. I feel like several of the stories of people you've interviewed have involved this same story. And I was just praying, thinking about the future and thinking, okay, I know that you want to give me the desires of my heart, and I want to please you and be of service. But if I really could just choose anything in the universe, I would love to dance for Randall Flynn. Dancing Randy's movement to me felt like putting on old comfy sweatpants. Like it was just home. And but he didn't have a company. So that seemed like an impossibility. And I thought, Lord, I don't know. The thing that I would really love to do doesn't exist. So I don't know how this is gonna pan out. And over that same week, during a jazz class by Jeff Lewis, actually, you were at this outreach as well. I remember some gorgeous wings. Randy came up to me after Jeff Lewis's class and he said, Karen, I haven't really talked to too many people about this, but I just want you to know, I used to have a dance company and I'm thinking about starting it up again, and was wondering if you would want to come dance for me. it feels a little bit like Jenna Vance being given the phrase choreography that Randy gave in the class. It was that clear. Yes.
Love it. Love it.
You go. So, so I moved to Houston for that year right after college. Actually, I figured out how to graduate a semester early and just get on with it. And loved my time at Deum because of the family of people that I got to work with. And of course, dancing Randy's choreography, which is so satisfying and beautiful. And got married that same year to, again, God's providence, right? A partner who would now have seen me through 21 years of just creative adventures in taking leaps of faith. And God knew that Dayton would be the perfect partner to take all of the steps of faith that we would over the 20 years so far that we've been married. And in that same year, both Dayton and I felt like our calling to faithfulness in our art forms, and he was a growing visual artist at the time, just kind of starting to wrap his brain around what it might look like to be a visual artist. We felt like our calling had something to do with pushing the boundary of excellence that we were each capable of to the furthest extent. So finding the challenge or the opportunity to be pushed and to grow, to just take that as far as it possibly could. And I think for both of us, I can say, I don't think that came from a place of, I want to be the best dancer in the world, or I want to be a famous artist, but really just a passion for the craft, and a passion for being a part of something that's done so excellently. And so we took some time to seek out the way to kind of faithfully make those steps, but we eventually moved up to the Northeast. We lived in Philadelphia for 6 years, and there I danced at Marah Dance Theater, and also because of a relationship with Stephen Wynn that was built at Belhaven College. And then after that, it was kind of the region of the country to be a launching pad to audition for other dance jobs. And so I went on from there to dance with MOMIX, and my husband got into the School of the Art Institute of Chicago for grad school. And so we made a move to Chicago. Another one of those early planted desires, little bitty seeds that was planted as a young dancer when I was growing up, was just loving Hubbard Street Dance Chicago as a company. The combination of jazz and the growing genre that was starting to be called contemporary dance and rooted in ballet, it just seemed to encapsulate all of the things that I loved about dance, but also the ways that I just kind of uniquely fit into the dance environment. I was not a ballerina, although I love ballet, and I find it an onion that is infinitely peelable. And that challenge makes it, to me, forever fascinating to just come back to and keep peeling and digging and finding new things. But that dream had always been out there. I had even auditioned for their second company in the past. And so at a point in time that made sense for our family, my husband finished grad school, and we had one wonderful little Anna child, our oldest daughter, who was tired of spending all of her time with mom and ready to go into preschool and wanted to be around kids. So he finished school and she went to preschool, and I had, it was an available moment. And so at nearly 30 years old, I started beating the bushes to try to weasel my way into an audition at Hubbard Street. And again, through relationships and the availability of time and some tenacity that I had never really known of myself, that relationship was built, and I ended up getting a job to dance with Hubbard Street. And that also was incredible and has been a family of incredible, excellent practitioners of dance and creative individuals that I will consider my family forever. And then the woven story of stepping out in faith is never just a success followed by success, followed by success, followed by success. And so there's disappointments along the way as well. My contract was not renewed in the second season that I would have been there. And it was also 2008. And the company shrunk and jobs were being lost everywhere. But relationships forged there, and also just in the Chicago community. I went on and had just continued to have some really, really wonderful dance experiences, working with Victor Quijada and RUBBERBANDance Group in Montreal, and dancing with the Lyric Opera in Chicago. Got to do a couple of operas there, which was great to be able to be home and working and in the same place. And then as we looked at where our family's desires were, and wanting to grow, and also to have a little more support structures in our lives, because a two artist working family in Chicago with no other support systems is challenging. We made some strange decisions. I was considered for and offered a job to dance for a particular contract project with Lar Lubavitch, and that would have meant moving to New York and putting Anna in. She was just about to start school, kindergarten or first grade, in New York, Dayton, not having a job there. And while that is the sort of step of faith that our family has taken in the past, and I had no doubt that if that were the right answer, that God would provide for all of our questions and uncertainties. My husband had a real sense that that type of step was not the right way to walk in obedience at that particular moment. And sometimes in a relationship that is dynamically trying to follow Christ together, you listen to each other, and you don't necessarily always feel the same sense of certainty about it. But he had been listening to God and listening to the rumblings happening in art community circles as well. And we had family in Northwest Arkansas. My in-laws lived in Siloam Springs. And so about a year after that, we made a crazy big move to Bentonville, Arkansas. People kept saying, you mean Arizona, right? You're moving to Arizona? No, we're moving to Arkansas. So we moved to Arkansas. Again, it was actually, in reality, it was no less of a leap of faith. Neither one of us had jobs, and it was a community that did not have much in terms of an arts ecosystem. It just didn't. But what it did have was a brand new, large, beautiful American art museum called Crystal Bridges that Alice Walton had built. And my husband's kind of faithful paying attention just had the notion that an investment of that size in a community that didn't already have much in terms of an arts ecosystem was an investment that was lasting, right? And that those smaller things would grow up in the wake of it. And so we moved kind of like pioneers to Bentonville, Arkansas with our pickaxes and our rakes to kind of till some soil and see if what it would be like to be on the growing end of an arts community. And so we have now been in Northwest Arkansas for almost 9 years. And we've added 2 more children to our family. God has continued to provide opportunities to both perform and choreograph and teach. When I really, really did think that I was moving to figure out what life after dance looked like, because I didn't see anything at all. And now we've come all the way to the point where I've recently taken on a project with a grant supported by the Walton Family Foundation to really investigate and strategize how to develop and sustain a dance community and ecosystem here in Northwest Arkansas. And the fun thing about that is to find the really beautiful things that are already going on here that not a lot of people knew about. And so I get the pleasure of drawing kind of general public attention to some otherwise underserved, undernoticed, underrepresented communities that have been dancing and making dance in their communities. And just I get to like be a megaphone and say, look over here, it's beautiful. So that's like as concise as I could make it.
That's lovely. No, it's beautiful. It's putting whatever, 30 years, 20 years, last 10 years, 5 years, and painting that out. And you did it beautifully. You did it beautifully. So the listening part, you alluded to that. And I love that verse as well, that articulates that we delight in the Lord and he'll give us the desires of the heart, our heart. And for me, many years ago, that turned, because I really started understanding how there's little that I really know completely about myself. And as I continue to discover who am I, go back to the manual, right? Go back to the maker that put us together and ask him, well, what desires do you want me to have? And because we'll have some innate ones that we want, we have preferences and bias and all of that, which is so incredible, passions, but also that place of understanding how we delight in the Lord, and he gives us the desires that are already there, but he names the desires and writes the desires and is the author of the desires. Mm-hmm. And so that can trump what I might think that I really want. And then that becomes the new passion and the new love. And I love that aspect of how much you articulated about that part of being and existing in that place of desire, because you articulated it very well, that we get confused. At times we're told to put self aside. And so that means that we can't have any real passions or any real wants or needs or desires. And that's so far from the truth. It's putting it in perspective and balancing out. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Keeping the desires right-sided with the ultimate fulfillment of them. It isn't that by having my desires fulfilled, then I'm ultimately happy or content. I'm ultimately happy and content in my relationship with the Lord and his provision and acting out of his call on my life. Yeah. And then I still get to do these things that he's put in my heart to do.
Yeah.
It's like icing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so amazing and so overwhelming at times. Just like I look around and I think, this is my life. And obviously it's not really my life, it's God's life that he's given and gifted us with, but there is an ownership in that,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. And I'm just so blessed with, like you know, family and calling and opportunities to cultivate and hoe and till the soil and plant the seeds and be around long enough to see some things blossom. And that's the longevity part that you've already been investing in, and you've already been doing that work in this area for these years. And so now a natural result of the labor is you've proven faithful in those things. And so God then says, all right, well, then here's more. So I love that part of the long view, right? Because at times we have this instant gratification and we put together our 6-month plan, our 1-year plan, but really what is the 10 and 20 and 30 and 50 and 60 year? And obviously the Lord numbers our days, but in that there is visioning, right? And there is dreaming that. Yeah, so I just bless you and all of that. And it's really beautiful to hear, and the excitement in your voice and the sparkle on your face and eyes. So you've talked a bit about cultivating, listening skills. You've talked a little bit about you as an artist. But I'd love to hear more about those areas, just either how you all have learned as artists. I'm married to an artist as well, and hearing a common voice and then being in agreement on it. That's a part of being married and to creatives, but just cultivating that listening. And then obviously along the way, you've developed leadership skills and leadership qualities that you all have established. I just would enjoy hearing about those areas.
I was thinking about listening and developing listening skills. And I think what I realized was, and this is the area that's has always been most difficult for me, is that in order to listen, you have to stop. You have to stop talking. You have to stop doing. You have to stop being so full and so busy and so involved or engaged that you can be quiet. And I'm really not good at being quiet. Part of it is I just like the busyness. I think I'm happier when I have too many things going on. And so I think for me, one of the ongoing disciplines, and I'm not good at this. It was actually great to be reminded that I need to keep reminding myself to stop, is just to stop, to quiet yourself, to be able to listen and to ask of the Lord for direction, for wisdom. And that's been one of the most fun parts of this new work that I'm doing, is that I've had the opportunity to reach out to people in my local community that otherwise I hadn't had extensive conversations with, and just ask questions and be the place to put their responses. I get to collect, I get to hold place for their dreams and their ideas. And so listening has actually become one of my absolute favorite activities right now. When I have the opportunity to hold space for someone else's story. And that's kind of the direction that I hope that this work grows, that I can be a facilitator of sharing other people's stories, which is fun, because I think one of the most wonderful things about dance as an art form is its ability to convey or share a story, whether it's a traditional narrative or not, in a way that is so accessible humanly, you know, regardless of language, or there's just something that we all understand about the language of the human body that that makes storytelling with bodies resonate with people. So that part's fun. But you asked about, I guess, as that relates to leadership skill development, I think the ability to listen is enormous. And then the ability, the willingness to say yes and to take the next step forward. I feel that enormously because I tend to underestimate what I'm capable of. And I don't know, I was thinking about this today, I don't know whether the default mode of humility is to protect myself from the really, really big dreams and ideas that I have that I'm afraid I might fail at, or to protect myself from ultimately like the pride that gets tangled up in everything that we do. But I tend to just say from the beginning that I can't do something. And so it's been a process for me to acknowledge that I don't have to say I can get to the end result. I just have to say, I see a next step and it looks scary, but I'm going to trust that God has given me this direction and I'm going to take the next step. And I think a lot of leadership is just being willing to take that step and then really be aware and listen to what is going on around you.
Yeah. Part of it is the systems, right, that we follow, or part of it, excuse me, is faith.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the blind faith. We say yes, and there's not a system. And so
yeah,
that's a good thing. Yeah. Tell me about your creative process.
Oh, goodness. My creative process is probably something that I have been the least deliberate about developing. As a dancer, somebody described me as a dancer's dancer. I had always had more of a priority of being an excellent vehicle through which someone else accomplished their creative vision. And I was perfectly happy with that. Actually, my husband and I used to argue about this all the time early in our marriage, because in his creative, artistic brain, being a choreographer was of so much more value than just being a dancer, because that was actually creating something. And the dancer is basically just a paintbrush or a color, you know. But I was very happy to just be a color. Like, just tell me where on the canvas you want me and I will stand there and be red, you know, whatever you need. I think over the 6 years or so that I've been teaching in a public high school, running a dance program and having to put on performances with the group of students that I have in front of me. This is who I'm serving right now. And how can I both give them experiences that will build them as people, as dancers, as just expanding their kind of student universe. I think the best way to describe the creative process that I've recognized in myself is really has to do with listening and observing. I mean, being aware of what resources I have in front of me, and then finding creative solutions to problems. And I'd say that's generally how I tackle everything. I am not a person who gets an idea and then goes out and finds all the things I need to make that idea happen. I'm way more often inspired by something I see in front of me and look around for the resources that I have to work with, and then figure out creative solutions to make something out of that. I saw that in myself when I was much younger and had time for things like crafts, that as a crafty, makey person, I would make something out of what I had before I would go to the store and buy what I needed to make what I wanted to make. So I think the same way about movement and about the creative process, whether it's choreographing a ballet on the Tulsa Ballet Second Company or working with students at a public high school. I think it's really fun to look at what you have and figure out ways to make something creative and beautiful with that, with what's right in front of you.
It's that problem solving, so to speak. And sometimes we discount the value of what's already been put within us. And we think we have to lean on other resources or other people to get to that next level or that next place or that next part of the project or whatever it may be. But really, when we take that introspective time to dig in, there's been already so many deposits put in. And so if we tap into that wealth of possibilities, then it really, there's so many ways creativity can be displayed. And I agree with you that there's sometimes that expectation from others that, well, this is the lofty place where if you're a choreographer, then that's like a kind of a higher calling. I guess it would be similar to somebody that plays in an orchestra. They're playing the notes, but there's some amazing, yeah, it's incredible. And they're very valuable. It just is that other part isn't the desire maybe that God's put within them. So
fortunately, I have always been extremely stubborn about authenticity. Just for myself, I've never possessed the ability to claim to be something that I'm not, or to even want to appear some other way than I am. So I guess I consider that stubbornness a gift as well, because God's really just allowed me to say, you know, I'm going to be just every bit of what you made me to be, and I don't really need to be more than that. Because there's value. That's interesting. That's a gift. I wish that I could gift that to that sense of just the realization of your own value. And not in a way that causes pride or causes the diminishing of anyone else, but just in a way that allows you to be, and to be willing to find out all of what that can be, you know, all of what's already just put in me, and I don't have to try to become something else or someone else.
Yeah, there's a lot in that, and especially in our culture today, where we idealize the aesthetic of someone else or the artistic expression of someone else. And it's this constant wanting to be like them. And yet we all have been fearfully and wonderfully and uniquely made.
Yes.
And being able to walk in that, dance in that, live in that, talk in that, eat in that, just exist in that place. It does take a confidence and a boldness. It also takes a rootedness, right? And understanding our identity and being in the world out there, just as an artist, at times that's under suspect. Either if we say we're Christians, and then you're really almost held to a higher standard, that we're not going to be like those other ones that have been labeled as a particular just Christian way of operating or living or existing. Or so what do you see? Because a lot of your work has been done in the marketplace. What can you share about that as either challenges or successes or tips or just experiences? What's God doing out there in the world?
There's so much. Well, especially in the past year and a half, there's so much that has been thrown into question. There has suddenly become so much opportunity for questioning the way that everything has always been done. And so more than anything else, I hear those conversations happening. And I'm curious to see how they'll pan out over the next couple of years, whether it's like in moments of crisis where everyone decides we have to deal with this, but over time, as attention to a particular dynamic or dilemma wanes, whether we creep back into old models, or if there really will be, and this is actually what I see happening, the emergence of new ways of looking at things, new ways of talking about value and importance. That's one of the big things that I see. I've seen this trend already, like well beyond the last couple of years, but I feel like it's a moment where I guess the arts community and the dance community specifically are even more ripe for this, but there's the ability for creative individuals to have a vision and just go do it, as opposed to working through a structure or a system or the pipeline of permission. That there is just so much available to an individual who says, I'm passionate about this and I think it's important. Just the ability to say that I think this is important and that others should also value this is like a rare thing right now. And I think it draws attention, right? And so it's funny, the work that I'm doing very locally in a very small community compared to the whole country, I feel like is a little bit of a microcosm of that. I have the ability to say, I see something beautiful and I think you should pay attention because it would edify your life. And so I think that's kind of an amplified in the larger discussions going on in the dance community at large, that it's a moment to be able to say, look, this has been going on and it's beautiful. Everybody stop and look at it for a moment. It's like a stop and smell the roses moment, only there's so many flowers.
That's lovely.
I know that's kind of deliberately vague, but there's just so many angles that that questions of inclusion and who gets to be a part of the conversation and who gets to be put on a pedestal or brought to the limelight. All of those things are being discussed in ways that are hoping and trying to be more equitable. And I don't know, I think it's just a really beautiful moment to stop and look around.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Well, it takes us back to that place of listening and how you articulated that if we really are going to ingest, if we really are going to take in, there at least has to be a reprieve or a pause,
right,
to take notice. And you're doing that so beautifully in your community, and God has positioned you in such wonderful ways, Karen, to be that voice of excellence that really is causing others to pay attention and to have their lives enriched and blessed. And I just bless you for all of that work. And I know that it might not feel all the time like, these were the other thoughts or the other dreams or the other desires. And yet looking at this time and season in your life and your family, and just being thankful and full of gratitude that this is the time and this is the place and these are the opportunities and this is our God that is leading out in all that. So just want to say thank you for your faithfulness and thank you for taking time today. It just is such a treasure to connect and to get caught up and to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. It's so nice to have the opportunity to need to stop and reflect. So you gave me that gift at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, we'll make sure people are able to connect with you in some way. But again, just I bless you, my sister, and love you, and so thankful for you.
Thank you. Love you too, Cynthia.